own itself, nothing less than the wind. Hard in the paint, going fair with the pen.
Hello, welcome to Speaking the Real. I'm your host, Willie Joe. Today we have Alicia here with us, and she's a mother, and we'll be talking on the top of mother. And she's a professor, so she has some education behind her, and she's in the healthcare, so she knows a whole lot about what we're going to talk about. And what we're going to talk about is younger men being raised by women. And it's a lot of going on in the world today with younger men and how they bringing up and behind single women. So we're going to speak with a single mother right here today, and she's going to give us some insight on the woman's perspective. And Miss Alicia, tell me, how do you feel? Do you feel that a woman can raise a man?
Yes, I do feel like a woman can raise a man.
And why do you say that? Because, give me your point of view.
Well, I'm gonna say this. As a mother, like you said myself, I do have 4 kids. 3 of them are adults now. 2 are male. And when I was raising my boys at the time, I tried to explain to them how put on their clothes, how to be very, cleanly. I might not have been able probably how to speak to women, sometimes, but how you should properly address a woman, how respectful you should be. Um, as time went on, I still did have access to their dads. So there was times that my kids still, the boys still did talk to their dads about stuff, or maybe seeing how their dad might approach situations with me or maybe other women in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like we try to give those boys at least good sound information, try to mold them as far as letting them know what the world is going to be like. I do let my boys have free range, like whatever they wanted to be in life or wanted their outcome to be. So I didn't try to, mold that or anything. But I do feel like my kids watching me as a mother growing up, that they respect the fact that I wanted to make sure that they were doing well. They like the fact that I went to college. They even discussed about themselves going to college. And, they learned that they did have some type of respect for women. So, I feel like at some points in life, yes, women can raise their sons. Maybe not the way maybe a father would maybe address certain things in life, but I still feel women can, raise a man. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And true enough, like I've been said before, you have some strong women, right, that raise a man, but I don't feel that a woman can teach a man how to be a man. You know what I'm saying? And a woman can guide a boy into becoming a man on what she figure a man role is and how he should be. But I just have different opinions on a woman teaching a man how to be a man. You know what I'm saying? You can guide, lead, this how I would want to be, and this how you should treat a woman. But the testosterones and the responses and all that men have, I think it takes a man to raise a man. And I feel that that's a lot what's going on in society, that men are not raising the boys to be men. And we're coming across all this, drama, and a lot of men today, younger men, deal in their feelings, right? Mm-hmm. And because we know the man and the woman are 2 different creatures, right? And now I feel with a woman raising a younger boy to become a man, right? And he sees how the woman is, he kind of tends to mimic what he sees. You know what I'm saying? Because when we growing up, when you learn what you see is like what you do. You know what I'm saying? So I believe that that's what's kind of happening with our younger men today, with men not being in the picture to raise men. I mean,
So my opinion on that one is, okay, so I'm an open mom about my boys.
Right.
My oldest son, he is someone that would rather be preferred as wanting to be a woman, right? Mm-hmm. And so when I looked into that situation, when he was, kind of letting me know that's the route he was going at the time, I was told, like, by my own OBGYN, like, sometimes women, we might give too much testosterone. Well, take it back. Yes. Yeah. We have our own estrogen, right? So sometimes during the birth cycle, when the male is being developed in the woman's body, sometimes our hormones, which we're producing more estrogen, and it tends to maybe be more estrogen given to some of the young boys that I've noticed in a certain generation, that we do have more, guys out there like that. And what I've heard, even from my own, saying that, hey, I've always felt this way from birth. I mean, from maybe 2, 3, 4 years of their life, they had this feeling about it. And that's why I used to want to know, like, okay, what is the feeling? How do you know this? And then, like I said, when I discussed it with a healthcare provider, she was just saying that some boys in the woman's womb just gets more estrogen, than normal, versus there's with a normal boy that's not that way, or may not want to be that way. The testosterone and the estrogen, lines up perfectly. But then there's children that it doesn't. And so, just that theory alone, I felt like, okay, maybe that is the reason why. I don't feel like all boys though that look at a woman that's raising them want to be like a woman though. You got like my other son, that's not his route. He loves women. He loves talking to me about different girls and having different girlfriends.
Right.
But at the end of the day, they do see, what they're supposed to do and not supposed to do. But there's also a time when the kids are at their schools, they're with other peers and stuff like that, and they watch how their peers, react with them or what their peers are doing. Or like if there's a male teacher in their schools that they have classes with, they might watch how they speak or do something. Or you might have a mentor like my oldest son, he liked to play basketball. He's into sports and stuff like that, and he got into it mentoring around with another teacher that was a male. So not I feel like not that because maybe me and their father didn't work out together.
But he had a man.
He still had men in his life along the way to see the way you're supposed to be presented versus, how men might speak to you. You know how if you was getting on your son as a young age and you're trying to chastise him about something that he did wrong or how you're supposed to do stuff, how they listen and they straighten up and they, do that. Right. But then you got women can have that same type of energy, that same type of, I'm gonna chastise him and get on him, and I'm gonna punish him for what he's done and in their way, right. Whatever. And then they understand it. And then again, you still have TV, you still have other means, not as much as we have today. They have so much social media and other stuff that they can look into. But a woman still can, like I said, still be a good guidance, because when you talk to them, you explain them. When they're starting to grow, teenage, when they come preteens and stuff like that, you're right. Testosterone is different. You got your hormones are starting to, explore itself, and they want to, look at themselves and stuff like that. I would say yes, sometimes it could be a little difficult for a woman to want to explain it. But then I thought about it. I had sex education when I was in middle school, right. And it was a woman teacher, and we had books, and she still had to explain the body functions, and we had nurses that talked about it, and that way, even if you didn't say this and have that meal,
but I don't think they do that no
more. I don't know. Some schools might. I don't know in Texas if they do. I haven't heard anybody say, well, even my oldest kids, I hadn't heard them say that they was in a sex ed. I know during my time, I did have a sex ed education. I had to do that one semester. It was called health. It was called health class, actually. So, so sometimes you're right, but then they do try to have maybe the nurse or somebody come in and try to still explain about it, which maybe you're right. I think in school today, they might need to put that back into our schools, because they've taken so much away, and they focus on so many other about testing things, that they forget that you're still training up young adults that have to still understand the difference between, if they start experiencing, boys and girls experiencing being with each other outside of the home, and what is appropriate and what they should be doing. Also, because you got to realize there's still sexual things that go on in their lives, in their preteen and teenage years. So yeah, I do believe they might need to bring it back. But
wouldn't they say that should be did in the home?
I think that's what came up, maybe some years later they started feeling like maybe parents and you got, like, again, you're gonna have different opinions about this, where they feel like maybe yes, when they're at home with the parents, that the parents should be doing this and that. But I look at it in these days, it's kind of difficult, because some parents, I'm not gonna lie, might have to work work doing the hours sometimes that the child is coming home, might have these questions. Some they're involved in different stuff. I've seen kids in sports a lot. So at some given time, you gotta, yeah, the parent needs to pull it aside to try to do it. But I think that they still had a educational health class that they could go to. Some of those things could probably be answered during that time, and also having open door policies like they used to, where I remember you could go to your nurse if they had a nurse in your school. You could talk about these things, something where they don't have a judgment, something where they can feel safe at,
Like a counselor.
a counselor that they feel safe to come and talk to. Because right now there's just so many great lines that they can do, because you don't if they feel like there's something else going on, then there's like mandatory reporters, that you gotta report things to the state about things now. So it's just can be a difficult task sometimes. But yeah, I agree with that part.
Yeah, and I was speaking right because I noticed in these days that a lot of young men get in their feelings a lot. You know what I'm saying? They get in their feelings kind of quick. And I'm thinking because, raised by a single mother, you know what I'm saying, which is women, you know what I'm saying, emotions are different from men. And sometimes women act out of their emotions when men are more of a rational type. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
we built that way, right? And then the woman, a son seeing his mother react the way she do, he tends to take upon what he's seeing. You know what I'm saying? And I only feel this way, that's where the younger men are kind of getting it from. You know what I'm saying? Because
the generation that you see now, yeah, I think that it was, I won't say this, it's a little different from our generation, in between our generation of how we was growing up. Because some of us, for myself, and even though today my dad does live with me, he had strokes and stuff like that, so I do take care of my dad. But as a child, I was not raised with my father. I was raised with my grandmother and her husband. And then I also had my adult aunts and aunties that also was in my life during that time. So I saw how my uncles were, how my aunts was, and then I had my grandmother. And so I do, and myself, I have a sister and I have a brother. And so I would say at this point, I know my brother has his own opinion about what you just said, because sometimes they do want to reach out and need, a dad at a certain age, because early on, before we started talking, we were speaking out loud about how, my boyfriend, he was stating that how he grew up in a family with his grandmother and his grandfather and stuff like that. But it was a time in his life he wished that his father at the time would have been there for, like, when he was struggling with his own needs or thoughts. And I'll say, yes, there's a generation of guys that do want that. They look at, no, I want my dad is to talk to me, and I want my dad to be there for me, because they feel like they needed to get that love, that extra love from the father. And so, going back to my own self, me growing up as a kid, I guess either way it went, I felt loved. I'll put it like this: I felt loved because my grandmother, she loved me, my grandfather loved me, and then I still had aunties and aunts and stuff. And so in my life, I guess I never felt that way, but I do know people around me, and I knew, like, my brother, he felt that way, because my mom was married to my brother's dad, but later in life they got a divorce, so he wasn't there with him to really, reach out to him. Now, as he got older,
at what point was they like the male figure there?
he was there when he was young. Yeah, when my brother was a young boy, probably up until like 4, 5, 6. Probably when he was about, yeah, it was still a young time. So after his 6 years, my mother and his dad, they separated and got divorced, and then he came to live with me, my sister, and my grandmother, and so it was a different dynamic for him. So even though my grandfather, he lived until, by the time my brother probably was finishing high school or whatever, he still wanted his dad to be more of a prominent figure. Right. Now, years later in his life, his dad became more like that, when he was grown. But, like, I'm going to go back to what my boyfriend had said too. He wanted his dad there when he was younger, like 6, 7, 8, 9 and up. But that's not what he had. And I guess on this perspective, the only thing I could say is that some young guys, some men, they feel they really do need that father figure in their life, where there's some guys, they're okay that sometimes that dad wasn't, prominent in their life, because it depends on how well they feel they were loved. I'm gonna look at it like this. I see moms out there at the football fields with they sons. I see them out there helping them do fundraisers. I see them out there going to each game, and I feel like that love that comes from the mom doing all of that and still instilling in being something, still to me with some guys it's okay. Now I'm not gonna say that maybe in the back of their mind,
but I'm not
they don't
saying
feel that
like
their father not being there. Yeah.
without the love, you know what I'm saying? Love, because love has to be shown, right? You know what I'm saying? We all need love, right? And I'm not saying that a mother cannot give the love, right? But sometimes when the father is not there, it's a certain type of discipline, a certain type of guidance. The male presence in the home itself makes a big difference, right? You know what I'm saying? And younger men look for that. They really need that, you know what I'm saying? I think that's why God created the man and he put the woman, and with the both of them together, it creates the right balance for the child to grow up in, you know what I'm saying? But without the father being there and it's just the woman, then it would be kind of hard on the child. Yeah. And I believe, like I said, with a lot of us younger men going astray today, and not all women are like that, because you got some strong women who can raise a young boy to be a man and he be successful and he go on, and you know what I'm saying? But it's a strong woman to do that, right? And that's what the whole thing is. And with a woman being there, because a lot of women be there for their children. You know what I'm saying? And they raise them and they nurture them, you know what I'm saying? But I think it's with that male presence and showing you what you should and what you should not do has a difference, you know what I'm saying? And younger men, like, so emotional dealing with the woman raising them, and he's seeing all that. You know what I'm saying? That's the whole thing. He's seeing all that, and he's not seeing like a man, even though a man should express his feelings, you know what I'm saying? And talk about whatever he's doing or whatever's going on. In our generation, we really didn't do that. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? The generation before us, that really wasn't like that. But that is much needed, but to the point where you don't recognize, you know what I'm saying, that a man is supposed to be a certain rational way and not so much in your feelings. You know what I'm saying? That's how you created, but that's what you've seen and that's what you did. You know what I'm saying? And if you could come back to the point of this is how a man is, you know what I'm saying, being raised, and then I think we'll have more young men than what we have right now.
So what do you think about this? Because I think about these things. Like, say for instance, I've seen where fathers maybe have to go to like the army, right? That's one thing. They have to be deployed. Then I look at sometimes there are things that happen when the dad is no longer, here on earth. And then I look at maybe you had a dad that had to travel because their job made them travel. And a lot of times the mom would still have to be that mom and dad sometimes because the dad still wouldn't be there. And so I think at this point, I think about mentors, right? So let's talk about a mentor, a male mentor, like they used to have, and I think they still do, the Boys and Girls Club, right? And so where you find a mentor, at least a male figure, you feel that can provide the mentorship of knowing what's right and wrong. Because when coming up in our day and time too, we did have those mentors. You had people you can go to the park, people that were like over, I guess they were park attendants, or I know they work at the park. Sometimes it would be meals. They would have basketball games and the baseball games,
like coaches
and stuff like that. And they would look up to them as a mentor because they would still, get on them as if they was their child, And sometimes you have those times that those things can happen with a child, and there will be a male mentor that will be showing them something positive. But then there's, like I said, I go back to the point where maybe the male is no longer here. How do I can't judge a person saying that, hey, that woman can't do it because she has to do it because now that man is no longer here, to do anything with the child. And so eventually I could say a woman can only do so much as far as what she could say to them, especially when it gets to their preteen lives, because that's when a lot of kids are coming into their
feeling themselves.
Yes. And so this is the point where they start, they have attitudes, they don't want to listen, sometimes they do have more anger, and it could be from a lot of things that they don't want to express. And so also doing, I guess I would say now in our generation, what happened to our young boys now, we find a lot of our kids are going to psychiatrists. We find a lot of times when they're in school, early years, they're saying they have attention deficit issues, their hyperactivity, they're hyper and all that. And sometimes it's not just that, it could just be a lot of times they just need redirectional. And when things start to slow down and their mind is all together back again, that things are okay. But I've noticed in our school districts, the first thing that they had a lot of parents doing, especially this generation that's in their early 20s now, they had a lot of those students going to the psychiatrist. They've been put on medications. They've been told, okay, well, they can't do this. And then we also got a different dynamic of the teachers. We started getting teachers that probably, if you think about it, even for high schoolers, that they would be the age of maybe not 4 or 5 years older than the students that they're teaching. Like my daughter, perhaps I would say, who's in her 20s right now. I went to her high school games. She used to play volleyball and stuff, and her teachers really wasn't that much older than her. They were in their early 20s, and she's in her teen years. So you got to think about, like, when we go back to our, like what you said about discipline and understanding, the dynamic is when they started coming up in these, I would say, the late 90s and early 2000 young generation. They were being led by younger teachers, not teachers that were way older than us when we were in school. Yes, the dads and the moms, I would say, may not have made it through, and they was either gone out of their lives or whatever, and they had boys. And the first thing they did when a boy came to school and he was just over hyper or doing whatever was to say, oh, can you take your child to see a therapist, and then put them on medication. And also the medication to me started to mess with the kids.
And that's what I said. And they was so quick. I remember a time when they was quick to put, you know what I'm saying, kid ADHD, giving them medicine and, you know, mess a kid up, right? And we knew how that played a part too. And that, you know, dropped the kid down and, you know, drug the kid out, you know. So that was never a good thing. I never did agree with that either, you know, even though, you know, you being hyper, you just naturally, you know what I'm saying, moving. There was mostly a lot of boys that, you know what I'm saying, that was on the medication. You didn't hear about so much as girls, right? And that's another thing that probably played a part with the younger men being the way it is. But I feel when you put a person on drugs like that at an early age, you set them up for drug addiction. You know, and a lot of things, like a lot of drugs, a lot of boys do drugs nowadays. We don't know if that's where it come from, you know, but I wanted to say to, you know, trying to, how can we bring these young boys back to young men, you know what I'm saying, grow them up into being young men. Like we, you know, we need mentors, right? We need mentors. And if you catch the kid, young man at an early age, now you can give him some guidance until when he gets up to the point, of like teenager, now he knows what to do, what not to do. And, you know, mentors are very much needed, but at the same time, and we have, it is mentor programs. You might not hear about it as much as you should, but it is there. And for a mother raising a child by herself, needing that man figure there, you know what I'm saying? Like the Boys and Girls Club, as you talked about, you know what I'm saying? They still here today, you know what I'm saying? So if we can try to get that back implemented, you know what I'm saying, then it'll be good for them.
Yeah, I think that, if they would have, and I can't say they're not, only reason I can't say they're not because I'm not, you know, I have one last child that's a teenager, but she's not involved with, you know, under the HISD system. So I don't really know, and, you know, that system has been broken, what they allow to come back into the actual schools anymore. But the crazy part now, I would say, is that everybody has to be screened, you know, and I'm saying as far as a male go, they have to be screened to be mentors, because we really don't know likelihood of how they are in the background. You know, everybody can dress up and put on a suit and tie. Everybody can bring a representative to you in the beginning, right? And a lot of times those are the things that happen. And then down the line, we find out other things start to happen with our boys with a mentor sometimes that we really don't have any background information about. So you know, just to say that to Lisa, and I don't, bring that up lightly. Sometimes that do happen.
That do.
So, yeah, you never know. I mean, as far as a male role model, you know how you say, oh, they need the man, but I was looking at the fact, say this is the man ain't there. Or maybe the man is gone away for years, right? And they don't have nobody but their mom. But sometimes women remarry men, and hopefully they're a good guy. And they really are there to help mentor their sons while they're with them. But sometimes we just don't know people backgrounds either. So
True.
down the line, you find about pedophiles. I mean, I just look at just things that's even happening in the media today that we find about certain people that we kind of idolized or something at one time in our lives. They have things in the background, and then we sometimes thinking that, oh, things are good, but we really never know. So I feel like in the end, it's all about just praying that your child do what's right, being more of a, and as a mother, I'm gonna take it to the mother perspective that I pray that my child do what's right, pray over my child. And even if I have a male in my life, whether it's my husband or a boyfriend, that they're good to that child, and that they see something that they feel that's good in that person that you're with. And then I also feel like, yes, let the mom still be that. I'm gonna say we're the protectors, so we still look and protect them. We might not can protect their feelings when they get hurt all the time. We might not can protect when they might have they're going through preteen hormonal situations, but we can be there to talk to them when you're a strong mom and try to get them through. We might not can know everything that what a man goes through versus how we know what women go through for themselves, but we can at least talk them through it enough so that way, as those times pass, because that's a gray line in their life, but as they pass and then that goes away and they're getting to be adults, that woman, like you said, that was still that single mom, still was able to help install something, even though it might not have been the way the male could have done it his way, that they still respected that. Because I can't say that my boys respected the way I raised them and how I did, and how I still are there for them, throughout anything that they go through. Mm-hmm. Now, if they felt like it was better for them to see their dad, and don't get me wrong, they all have closeness to their fathers, so they're able to talk to them, and they still, get their own mentorship through them now as adults. But
I'm saying,
but a woman that's single, that's what they'll go back to, and she's raising them without anybody. I still feel like there's still good women out there that still get their children through those gray areas where when their hormones go crazy and they're preteens and there's no man there, they still can get them through it. Because again, yes, you just got to have a good, strong woman that has good goals, who wants to think positive, and no, she's not trying to make them be something else they not want to be, but at least be open to what they're looking into, wanting to grow into in life. Put it that way. Okay. But yeah.
But and like, what about uncles? You know what I'm saying? Uncles, mm-hmm. grandfathers, cousins, older cousins. Stuff. It's just we need some men to be in their life. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. If you can get away with, somebody older or somebody who can really guide you, because boys tend to hang with different boys, and they learn from different boys who are only boys themselves. Yeah. And they take their friends' word like it's the gospel from God itself.
And that is what our generation works on. I'm going to tell you that what's true. You could tell your child 3 to 4 times, oh, that's not going to work, it'll be this. They're going to look at a social media platform, and they're going to take a social media person, an influencer, somebody that's famous, somebody that then even got into the YouTube game and became very popular. They're gonna take their opinion over yours until once they hear it, and then they say, oh yeah, okay, my mom said that or whatever. Okay. And then that's what they go with. It's like, okay, yeah, my mama said it. Now that they said it, okay, now I'm gonna go with it. And that's gonna be the same thing with a male, because sometimes I'm not gonna say all the time, but it can be the same way with a male too. They could say, well, my dad said this, but then they might look at somebody else in a male figure that's doing well on the social media platform, on TV or whatever, and be like, nah, he said it too, so yeah, I'm gonna go with it, Yeah. And I think that's just the way our current generation is. They're so in tune to social media and influencers that sometimes even when they have, say for instance, they could have you in their life, but if somebody else is a little bit more influential and they see it and listen, then they kind of go with it. The difference is with your voice, say for instance, I'm going to say you have more of a stern voice, right? You have a more dictator voice. me as a woman, I might have a more soft voice, more monotone voice or whatever. And so they might listen, but not listen. With you, you might give a diction as a male, and they might listen and straighten up because look, you came in and you gave a diction, and they hear it, and then yes, they will go with it. I'm gonna say this, like when you was growing up and you know how you was into the industry or whatever, and you had the young people around you looking up to you, you had guys looking up to you because they felt like, oh, you're doing great, you got this going on, and you was a male. And that's how young people today look at it. They're gonna see somebody in the media and the social, and they're gonna want to listen to them because they're somewhere that they're not, but they're showing that they making money, they're doing well, and they want to listen.
Right.
So the difference is
But
with
you don't
us,
think
yeah,
in the home, right? Everything starts in the home.
Mhm.
That's what I'm saying. With a male being in the home, then it's kind of different, right? It's a man in there to tell him, hey, this is what it is. This is entertainment. Hey, this is what this is. This is family orientated. This is how things need to be doing. This is what you need to learn. This is what you need to stay away. Even though a mother can say it, but like you said, with a man, it's a difference from you saying it and I'm saying it. Even though we saying the same thing, it's the way that I said that he receives it and the way that you said, and he like, okay. Because I know boys play on their mama.
Yep,
You know what I'm saying? They know that mama is this right here. But when he dealing with dad, I can't do that there. You know what I'm saying? I have to, you know what I'm saying?
Because your dad,
it's needed.
I would say that with a male, there's something that it's just like me looking at my daughter. It's something I'm gonna know. Okay, no, I don't believe it. I think this is what it is. With a male, I would say it's the same thing. You would look at your son and he'll do something, and you'll know now because I know how I was when I was growing up, and I know this feeling. So I know that, you know, let me go talk to him better because I've been there, right? It's like a been there situation. So that's what makes that male like you a little bit more believable because you already know. Plus, you're gonna come with a different vibe.
Mhm.
Women, we all come with one way of our vibes, and a male comes with his way of a vibe. And at the end of the day, like you said, it would matter if there was more men that would always be in the home, especially in our communities with with our communities and stuff like that. But it's not always men. It's not gonna always say it's gonna be, you know, something that's gonna always, you know, happen. You know, just because again, if you was a working dad, I would say for instance, you have to work. You traveling a lot. Maybe you in the, like I said, you in the industry, you was in the industry, you gotta go do concerts here, you gotta go do this. So you're not always at the home, right? But when you did start bringing the boys along, is when they got a little bit more older and mature, so that way you can, you know, keep an eye on them and talk to them and guide them. Yeah. So sometimes it's not, I'm gonna say this at the end. It's not always because a woman wants to raise a boy alone by herself, but sometimes it just ends up being that way based on what happens.
Yeah, the circumstance.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And that's understood. So how do you feel about parents being their friends with their younger kids, bring them up? You know what I'm saying? You know, when you get to a teenager, you nowadays, you know, they're already raised by younger mothers, right? And to try to be friends with your kids growing up. How do you what's your perspective on that? That's
Yeah, so I think I just got to listen to another podcast about this. So I look at it this way, and I'm gonna quote something that I heard Miss Michelle Obama say in a podcast that she has with her brother. I'm like this: you can be their friend when they get grown. I feel like when they're from a kid to a teenager till they make it to 18, 19, you know, where they start to know the respect, or maybe in their early 20s, you can be their friend then. When you're a parent from the time they're from birth until the time they're able to leave out your house, no, you need to be that parent to them. Right. Because when they become teenagers, when we keep talking about this gray line situation, they don't look at you the same if you've been playing the field as being their friend. Versus as when it's something serious and you mean something that you're saying and you're trying to guide them in the right way, they're not going to always hear you because you're so busy with trying to be their friend at a time that you just still should have been their parent. Right. That it'll turn into something, you don't want it to turn into something bad. So you realize that the relationship has to be a parent-child situation until the day they graduate, cross that finish line, they're into getting into their own, livelihood, they either start going to college, they either start having to leave because they went to college and living on their own, and and they're getting out there. Then there's a dynamic where it can change to where you have a different relationship when it can be more like mom and friend, situation.
Yeah, where we can
But
go out and kick it. But
yeah,
as far as growing up,
yeah,
and
you got to get them to respect. Because see, the thing is, if a child thinks you're your friend at a certain age, they're not gonna respect the things you say or respect you as a person. I feel like if you treat them, hey, hey, you my child, we don't do this, and you gotta like have to also, when they're teenagers, remember what you can talk to them about and not talk to them about. Because sometimes teenagers get so in their feelings and friendly to where there's things that's going on maybe in the parents' life that they're trying to chime in, and it's time to say no, no, you stay over here, and we're gonna handle this way, and then when you get grown, then we'll look at it differently. Because if they get chimed into your life, then they're gonna feel like they can control or be in your life or tell you what to do, when in reality, no, you're the child, I'm still you.
About when mothers say, I'm like this with my daughter, my son, where they can come and talk to me. When they have a relationship with me, like me being a friend, then they'll be more likely to talk to me about whatever they got going on or the situation like that. And I kind of disagree with it because, even if you friends with your mother, your child, if they friends like that, it's still certain things that they not gonna tell you. You know what I'm saying? And it might be that they tell you everything. But I don't think being a friend, because there has to be some discipline in that relationship. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And when you do have to discipline your child, it can't be no friendliness about it. It's got to be that this is what it is. We're laying the ground rules right here, and this has to be established. Because if not, a child will run over you. Children are very smart, and they know how to play games, and they play good games with their parents, especially if you are trying to be a friend to them. You don't want to lose a friendship. Now I feel that what I'm saying, there are some kids that take advantage of it, and it won't be much respect as it should be.
I think what happens is, as a parent, you do have to figure out a middle ground. Say, for instance, not saying, okay, he my friend, so I want to keep an open friends policy, so they'll tell me anything. Because you're right, they're not gonna tell you everything. There's still gonna be things that they leave out, or they're gonna do behind your back, and they're gonna do it with their peers, And so there's things that they only gonna come tell you unless they're like, maybe there could be some trouble or this and that, or again, feelings or how they think about stuff. It's just, I feel like sometimes you just have to be like, hey, what you been doing today? How it's been school? You kind of keep up what's going on with the background. You keep up with, okay, now they like to be on social media, those games, like, what is that game? My daughter,
Grand Theft Auto?
No, that's my oldest
Black
son
Ops.
game. No, these are like the games that they start off in school with, that they give them, like Roblox. Roblox, and there's some other little games. And these games have it like they're building their own homes, they're building their friends and all of these different stuff. But on the inside, on the intrium of it, you have external people that's always working with you too, like other teenagers or other kids. And they're doing different things. They're learning how to. I'm not even gonna story. They have games out there that show them how to be scammers, how to, they learn. These kids learn very quickly, like you say. They learn a lot of stuff way quicker than some of the, like me myself, that's playing on. I don't play games, but I do computers a lot. I do a lot of things.
This
with
their generation, so
but
this how they
their
grew up into.
They grew up into using a cell phone. They grew up in going online. They use the computer like from birth up until now. So they learn quicker. Like I said, their Roblox game and all that stuff. That game it's like a game of life to them. And being to say that they do certain things, and then as you have to be more of a monitoring parent to watch what happens or what goes on in that world, you find out like, oh, this thing taught you how to do this. They taught you how to, do that, and and nobody would think that, but a lot of the games that they use, they are being the teachers of some of their habits. It doesn't even sometimes have to be an outside person, but what you would have to do is be more monitoring when it starts, knowing what they're doing, checking on them, because they want you to play for more, things that they need to buy in their games after they build their homes and after they do all these things in this little world.
They got that
And they have yes, and then you get onto these other games as they grow older. They go to the next game that shows them how, and maybe I ain't gonna say it's a bad thing, and I ain't gonna say it's a good thing. I don't even know. I don't even want to express on it. But
Right.
there's games that goes even further than just them building the home and doing that stuff. It gets out there into what can happen in real life. If something break out like the apocalypse or just the world, come into different situations.
Okay.
They have games like that they're playing as well. So what I wanted to say is you have to be a monitor type of parent to monitor what they're doing, watch what they're doing, learning about the games, learn what these games show them, because some of those are the things that lead them through some paths in their lives as well. And so you want to be very observative, because if you're not observative what they're doing or learning, then you would not get to understand, like, okay, why are they doing it this way? Well, they be in this other world. They're transitioning to this other world. They're clued into this other world. You got kids that don't go outside and play sports anymore.
Yeah.
You got kids that strictly stay on gaming systems all day. And they have external people, you know nothing about them. You don't know who they are behind those scenes. You don't know who they're communicating with. And some of the learned behaviors come through the games, not just would appear. And so if you become more monitoring, but not saying you're trying to be a friend, not saying you don't know, you want to keep a dialogue with them where, hey, if you're doing something in this game that's not, I want to be able to come and talk to me about it. Since I'm not always there looking at everything you're doing, I need to know what's going on, because
a lot of
you want to be able to, yes, that's where you need to actually come in to capture what's happening, because kids learn a lot of learn behaviors with those games, and those games have become to me like one of the number one reasons why certain things do go on in this, and may go on in this particular genre of this I guess generation, I would say. So yeah.
So all right, let's talk about God being present in this whole situation, right? A lot of kids really, we don't refer back to God. We bring our children up, what I'm saying? Me, I'm Muslim, and, raised in a Christian home. We know we was installed to go to church, what I'm saying? So going to church was a big thing. And that way God was like in you have some recognition of God and who he is and the righteousness that comes with it, right? And I don't see a lot of it today, maybe because it's not promoted as much as it should be. You know what I'm saying? The kids are not seeing it, but that's the way to get back to going to church, you know what I'm saying? Going to the mosque, going back, having God present in the life of the child would kind of bring the child back to reality and to righteousness, you know what I'm saying? And have some kind of structure about themselves that'll make the person a better person if we guide them that way.
Yeah, I think so. I'm only gonna speak for myself. I could say at a young age I wasn't gay. I wasn't engaged in church, but as I got older and I got my own kids, we went to church periodically. But I did have neighbors that would take my kids to church with them and stuff like that. And I talk about God and I talk about prayers and things that's in the Bible. But I didn't have a steady home, and I can say that about myself, like a church home. And so I think my way of leaving out of it, but I started going back and, incorporating in my daughter and my other kids, they started wanting to incorporate it too, was maybe recently here. But I would say a couple of years ago, that used to steer me away sometimes from the church. And maybe, I don't know if that's the reason why this could happen to others, but I just noticed, like, stirred me away from the church. It was like, one, I don't want to go to church that make me feel like I'm in a cult that comes and they talk about how we gotta constantly give, and I get it. I need to give to the Lord because I'm giving my fruit of labor, because I'm able to work and he's the head of my household and keep me there. Mm-hmm. But you do have churches that they talk about their finances, they talk about giving, and then you looking at, okay, I'm giving, but then I also want to make sure that I'm getting the right guidance as far as what I'm getting out of church. Because when you go to church to listen to any minister, whoever it is, you want to get the word and the guidance of what that lesson was that he's trying to give you out of the word, right? You don't want to particularly want to focus later on about how much you need to financially give. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. You know, we have been involved in a church recently that basically they did. I think we would stay after church and they have their church meetings and stuff like that, and we would go over the finance. And I had never been to a church that did that. And they would, you know, they would incorporate that they wanted you to join different, like little small, like if you could join, you know, if you wanted to be in, I guess in gospel under the choir. They had other small little organizations. But what I found myself going to, not trying to stir you away, but to churches that was allowing you to really come as you were, like dressed normal and cute. They have like upbringing, like I like the way their music selection was, the way they brought you into it. It wasn't all about just giving, telling you about giving, but giving you
what about
guidance.
the children? You know what I'm saying?
That and then so when you brought the children into that, you wanted to bring the children in so that they could start listening and getting the guidance from the word. But in order for that to happen, you really needed to go to, I feel, a church that had a small, like a minister that had, like, you remember they had junior ministry, and then they have, you know, well, in a Baptist church.
Yeah, because
in a
I'm
Baptist,
Muslim, and you know,
that's
we bring.
different.
Yeah, we with the message. It's not so much about that. It's the you know what I'm saying, oneness of God and the worshiping and the righteousness. You know what I'm saying? Doing righteous about all people, where you get that peace and then you satisfy the God. That's what the whole thing is about that. So, you know what I'm saying? I'm kind of different. And I just feel with children having God present in their life, it has a sense to, you know what I'm saying, kind of bring you back to righteousness, right? And so for mothers out there, you know what I'm saying, what would you have to tell, what would you say to a mother who is going through the situation with raising a young man by herself, or, you know what I'm saying, the befriending of a child? Just, you know what I'm saying, what kind of inspiration would you give them right now?
I guess I would say this. If you're a single mother and you're raising your boys, just make sure that you're keeping a good rapport with them. If you start seeing that the hormones are changing, especially when they get in their preteen years, you know, find a way that you can talk to them and get a deliverance. If you feel like you can't at that time, then I would say seek a mentor, somebody that you can background check to make sure that, hey, they are pretty good as far as a man, you know, structure are, and that they don't mind helping you mentor your son. Is coming in as far as making sure they have understanding, they can come and speak to them and talk to them and have trust. And then that mentor able to talk back to the mom to help them also understand
what's going on with the child,
with the son, so that you will create a better relationship to where, again, y'all have an understanding, but that mentor, he figures out how to bring the son into how you would say respecting, knowing how to also train him to be a man once he gets older, what he's supposed to do as far as his work habits, going to school, how to treat the woman, how to also get himself into a, like Osteen say, a Bible type of church, even if it's Muslim, even if it's Protestant, whatever they go off into. It's about really understanding the word of God, you know, and that they respect that and that they keep that in their hearts as they grow up and become men, you know what I'm saying? And learning how to respect themselves, learning how to speak to people. I do know, I don't believe it's in the Muslim culture. I can't remember what, it's a religion culture, but they was teaching men, like, I guess, like, don't say this when you answer the phone, or how to answer the phone, or how to speak to people and stuff like that.
That's just mentoring.
Yeah, that's mentoring, but I don't want it to be also cult-like. I say that with a grain of salt, because sometimes those things can become cult-like. So you just want to make sure that whoever you choose as a mentor during the time that you're having issues that you can't relate to your son, that person is an open but neutral type of person, but also gives the respect, you know, the respect they need for the child to be able to respect them and listen, and then bring it back to the mom so that mom they can show that the whole support is, you know, they have a support system with the mentor, the mom, and the child, you know.
So mothers, you know what I'm saying, just be kind of open, and always, if you can, you know, let a male be present in a young man's life, whether it's the father, the grandfather, the uncle, the cousin, because men need men in their life, and especially men that's doing right. So we always need that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And
and that they reach out to let's say this, that they reach out to a good uncle or a good cousin, somebody that that's not in the world, doing
yeah,
worldly stuff that's not gonna help guide the child, but
yeah,
somebody
right, doing right.
that they're doing right. Yeah,
Yeah, that's what
because
we want.
sometimes you can have a cousin or brother, but if they not doing right, then
No,
they're not good mentors for the
right.
child.
We always want good and positive, you know what I'm saying, man figures in the child's life, you know what I'm saying, in a young man. Only a man can raise a man, and being a man comes with responsibilities. So we want to, guide men to being better men. So with that, you know what I'm saying, we go sign off, you know what I'm saying. It was good having y'all tuned in, you know what I'm saying. I thank Alicia for coming through and sharing the woman's perspective. Every month we're gonna have a woman come in and give the woman perspective so we can hear what the woman have to say about different issues, you know what I'm saying? Because without the woman, we wouldn't have the men all together. So we like to thank y'all for coming out, man. Y'all stay tuned, man, keeping it real. I'm your host, Willie Joe. Peace.